Message to anybody that wants to get with a woman that got money and power. Just don't. Look what the fuck happened to one of Big Mom's ex-husbands. Just don't. You end up fucking buried in the ground and getting your shit kicked in because it's pointless. They're just gonna use, abuse, and throw your ass out. So just stay away from the big fat fucking rich bitches because they'll fuck you over like what happened to that dude in this chapter. So we learned quite a bit in this chapter. First of all, we learned about the leave or life situation where if you live on Big Mom's property anywhere around there, pretty much every year you gotta give up 2 months worth of your life, which honestly I think that's set up for at some point Luffy is gonna have to, when he's fighting Big Mom or something, he's gonna give up even more of his life because Luffy's life has been drained already a couple different times. We know that every time he used Gear Second it was draining his life, and then the shit with, I think it was when he was getting healed up from one of his battles in Marineford if I'm not mistaken, or before Marineford, that was another thing that drained his life, and I think that this is another setup as well. Luffy's gonna lose even more of his life, and again, that's kind of going into what a lot of us speculate, that at the end of One Piece, Luffy is gonna RIP. And I gotta give Nami and Chopper and them kind of, some credit, honestly. Like, seeing Nami, hit the bitch in the face and, trying to get away. I mean, Carrot fucked herself over, but then, like, Chopper staying behind, going Monster Point, trying to fight the trees and shit like that. I give them some brownie points, even though they still getting fucked over by, essentially, fodder, because they're not, like, big-time names or whatever, but I at least give them brownie points for trying and fighting in the forest and shit like that, even though, again, for the most part, up until we got this knowledge in this chapter, I really think that this little arc or saga or whatever you want to call it, or them being on this island, felt pointless. It was kind of like Oda was like, yes, it feels like filler, so I'm going to give you some really important information about Big Mom and shit like that, so that it doesn't feel like a complete waste of time. Because in this chapter, Straw Hats find out, okay, so Big Mom is aware of us, and this was all a big trap to begin with. Ta-da! No surprise there, right? So they found that out. They also found out Big Mom's ability, that she ate the soul fruit, and she has the homies. Like, yo, the translation I read, when I read that she got the homies, I was like, really? Like, really? The homies? Really? And shit like that. So it makes sense how Big Mom has all this intel, because she could spread out her parts of her soul all around and shit like that. And it all goes back into as well that she's a big glutton and everything, and, the eating and shit like that. So it all works well. Her power works well with her motif and shit like that. So we found out a lot about Big Mom in this chapter, and it's kind of like, it was redeeming in a sense, the fact that none of us really cared about, this portion of the story of what's going on right now with Luffy and them being in this forest, and it keeps on repeating, and, the clones and shit like that. None of us gave a fuck until this chapter where it's like, hey, we got some decent information, and we got to see one of Big Mom's ex-husbands and what the fuck happens to them after Big Mom is done getting plunged by them. And I think one of the biggest things as well is we got confirmation about the theory a lot of people have been having for a long time. So finally we can, for the most part, move that out the way, is that dude, one of his daughters, was actually Lola from Thriller Bark, seemingly anyway. He's like, Lola ran away a long time ago. So again, that's gonna bridge some sort of connection. Big Mom seems like she doesn't really give a fuck about her kids like that. So even if Lola's like, hey, sends a letter, hey, leave them alone, she's not gonna care. She's not gonna give a fuck. She'll kill Lola too for running away. So I don't think Lola is gonna have much of an impact on Big Mom's decision or whatever she's gonna do. Big Mom don't really give a fuck unless that's like her special child or something. I don't see her really giving a fuck. And is it just me, or did the dude, Big Mom's ex-husband or whatever, remind you guys of that motherfucker that was stuck in the treasure box? Like, at the very beginning of One Piece, he was like stuck in the treasure box and shit like that. I'm kind of curious if there's any relation between the two of them. I mean, it could be mere coincidence that they look similar and shit like that, but that reminded me heavily of that dude. Maybe that's his brother or father son or some shit like that, but that kind of threw me off a little bit. I was like, yo, that reminds me of that dude, the dude in the treasure box. And with all that being said, for the most part, good chapter, mainly because of the exposition and mainly because of the things that we found out, and it kind of again redeemed the fact that we're on this island that we don't really give a fuck about. But hey, we found out a lot about Big Mom. Hey, we found out about Lola being confirmed, part, even though we already for the most part heavily suspected that for years and years. It's like, oh, so Lola is one of Big Mom's daughters and shit like that. So some decent information in this chapter. So overall, it was a good chapter, got some good information, and it's kind of like, all right, we got information, now can we get off this island? So I say about 7.5 at most for this chapter. It was good information, shit like that, but I'm ready to get off that island and move on to some bigger things with Big Mom. Let me know what you guys think. How did you feel about the revelation of like Lola is indeed connected to Big Mom? What do you think about the dude and him kind of looking like the treasure box dude? Do you agree that there's maybe some sort of relation or correlation between the two characters? And what do you think about Big Mom's ability, the soul fruit? And do you think that that's going to have an impact on Luffy during this arc, and it's going to drain Luffy even more to the point where Luffy will die at the end of One Piece? thoughts, your overall thoughts of the chapter. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.